Ārotos beta. Ho Ārotos beta. Endo tutoi proscore Pilipos. Ho Pilipos estin ho tu dikaiopolidos vios. Pais megos tekai Andreos. Pere deuto debnon proston potera. Epe des eston aigron is baine ton batere kai lege el tedero ho poter. Idu to debnon pero. Me kete un pone alla catis de cadebne. Houn pater lepe to aratron kai kele ton dulon. Catis dusen un hama ke deep nusin. Metade to depnon ho dikaiopolis. Meneo pai pesen. Ke su lambane ta sperma ke spere sure ho xantia. Scaptetus litus ke ec perec tu agru. Poloi garesin hoi litoi. Ke molis dunaton esten arutreuin. Hore zantias. Alun dunaton esti tusutos litus ec peren. Hode dikaiopolis. Me pluare, o santia. Alla pone. Ponus in un, ho te pater, ke ho pais, ke ho dulos. Delos de catadune meno helios. Hoi de anthropoi ucete ponusen alla lus imentus bus. Tode aratron lepusun in toiagroi ke prostonoi con bradeos badidzusin. Okay, so that is part 2 of chapter 3. Let's go back and look at the translation of this particular text here. So, let me grab a pen here and turn that on. Okay, so one thing to just be aware of is, at the beginning here you have in de tuto, which is really, this is a temporal expression. And so technically, when you see this, one good way to translate that is something like meanwhile. So meanwhile, Philip, he approaches, and that's your main verb. Philip approaches. Philip is, who is he? Philip is the Dicaiopolys's son. He's the son of Dicaiopolys. And then there's a description about him. We see that he's a brave boy. He's a boy. He's a pais. He's a big boy. He's megos, and he's also Andrios. He's brave. So meanwhile, Philip approaches. Philip is the son of Dicaiopolys, a big and brave boy. And what is he doing? He is pere. Again, we're using a classical restored pronunciation, which, by the way, is to be distinguished from a Koine Era pronunciation, which is what I typically read in, and certainly distinguished from an Erasmian, which is taught in the seminary and university level, and also distinguished from a modern pronunciation. So if you're trying to map out where are you at with this pronunciation, this is classical restored pronunciation. This is the best approximation we have of what the language sounded like in the Attic period based on misspellings and phonetic evidence. So, meanwhile, Philip approaches. Philip is the son of Dicaiopolys, a big and brave boy, and he is bringing the direct object, the deipnon. He's bringing the dinner to his father. And when he enters, when he enters into the field, so he's going to enter into the field, he calls his father, and he calls his father, and he says, so lots of verbs there. He says, "Come here, father. Look, I am bringing dinner." And then he says, no, so therefore, no longer, so stop, in other words, no longer pone, work. In other words, stop working, but it's time now for you to sit, Ἀθήναζε, sit and deepne, eat. Okay. A little further down. Therefore, so the father leaves the plow and he, Kale, calls the slave. Kathizun, so they sit, right? Therefore, they sit Hamas together. So therefore, they sit together and they eat. Deipnusin. And then you have metadev, a good transitional phrase, which just really means after. But after dinner, Dikaiopoulos says, stay. This is an imperative from Meadow. Stay, oh boy. Stay, boy, he says. And, let me move the screen down. Stay, boy, and Sulambane, help. So he wants him to do two things. He wants him to stay, and the other command is here is to help. Stay and help. Take the seed, he says. Lambaneta spera, que spere. Take the seed and sow it. Sow the seed. In other words, it's time to get back to work. Sow it in the ground would be the idea here. But take the seed and sow it. And you, Xanthias, so he says, and you, O Xanthias, dig. Okay? Dig up the stones and carry them out of the field. For the stones are many. See there, poloi. For the stones are many. And then you have, he uses this word molis. So the stones are many, and molis means something like scarce would be probably a good gloss of this. The stones. So carry the stones out of the field. For the stones, we see the stones are many, right? And what is scarce? Something is scarce. For the stones are many, and he says it's possible, scarcely possible, and then you got this infinitive. It is scarcely possible to plow. It's kind of a clunky way of saying, carry the stones out of the field, for the stones are many, and I'm hardly able to plow it because there's so many stones, is the idea. But Xanthias says, but it is not possible, he uses this adversative here, but it's not possible for so many to carry so many stones. Dikaiopoulos does not like this, but Dikaiopoulos says, and he's very strong here with his interjection here, Dikaiopoulos says, don't talk nonsense. Pluare o Xantia. Stop speaking nonsense, but but work. Get to work. I don't want to hear any excuses. Get to work. And so the father, Ke, Hopais, and the son, and the slave, and so the father and the son and the slave, they work. Okay. They ponusin, they work. You've got the father working, and the boy working, and the slave working. But at last, telos, at last the sun katadune, the sun sets. On the one hand, the sun sets, so here's your men and here's your dad. So this is a set here. And so, but at last the sun sets, and the men no longer work. But what do? But they loosen the oxen, and they leave the plow. They leave the Ārotron. they leave the plow in the field, and they badidzusin, they walk bradios slowly proston oikon to the house.